A street kid's laughter changed everything. Marcus Chen, the city's most powerful tech mogul, hadn't smiled in 3 years, not since the accident that left his son Daniel trapped in silence and a wheelchair. On a gray Tuesday morning, he witnessed something impossible, his 8-year-old boy laughing at a homeless teenager's silly dance. What happened next proved that miracles don't always wear expensive suits. Act 1, Setup Scene 1, the street kid, his name was Jamal Wright, and at 17, he'd mastered the art of being invisible. Every morning, Jamal woke on a flattened cardboard box behind Chen's Electronics, the flagship store of the empire he'd never afford to enter. The alley smelled of rotting produce and diesel fumes, but it was dry when it rained, and the building's heating vents kept him from freezing during winter nights. Small mercies. He owned 3 things: a backpack with a broken zipper, a photo of his mother creased from constant folding, and hope that refused to die despite everything. Just one more day, he told himself, splashing cold water on his face from a public fountain. One more day closer to something better. Jamal wasn't always homeless. 2 years ago, he lived in a cramped apartment with his mother, Maria, a hospital janitor who worked double shifts to keep them fed. She had big dreams for him: college, a real future. Then came the diagnosis: stage 4 cancer. 6 months later, she was gone, and the landlord changed the locks while Jamal attended her funeral. The system swallowed him whole. Foster care didn't want a troubled 17-year-old. Shelters were full or dangerous. So Jamal learned the streets, which corners to avoid, which store owners might spare day-old bread, how to smile through the crushing weight of being nobody. But he refused to become bitter. Instead, Jamal discovered something powerful: he could make people laugh. Street performing became his survival, juggling rocks, doing silly walks, telling stories with exaggerated voices. Tourists sometimes tossed coins. More importantly, for brief moments, Jamal forgot his hunger and remembered what joy felt like. He wore the same clothes for weeks: faded jeans with holes in both knees, a gray hoodie his mother bought him for his 15th birthday, and sneakers held together with duct tape. His hair, thick and uncut, stuck out in wild directions. But his eyes, deep brown and impossibly warm, held a light that poverty couldn't extinguish. This Tuesday morning started like any other. Jamal positioned himself near the downtown plaza, where office workers rushed to their important lives. He practiced his routine: a goofy moonwalk, an impression of a confused robot, anything to earn enough for a sandwich. Then he saw the boy. Scene 2, the antagonist Victoria Chen had perfected the art of cruelty wrapped in designer clothes. At 32, Marcus Chen's younger sister lived in a penthouse she didn't earn, drove a Mercedes she didn't need, and treated service workers like disposable props in her glamorous life. Her Instagram followers, over 2 million, envied her luxury lifestyle, unaware that everything came from her brother's genius, not hers. She had delicate features, expertly highlighted cheekbones, and a wardrobe worth more than most people's annual salary. But her eyes, cold and calculating, betrayed the emptiness inside. Victoria resented Marcus's success. While he built a tech empire through innovation and 14-hour workdays, she inherited their parents' estate and squandered it on parties and meaningless purchases. Jealousy festered in her heart, masked by expensive perfume and fake smiles. She especially resented Daniel. Her nephew's accident 3 years ago shifted everyone's attention. Marcus canceled business trips to care for his son. Therapists, specialists, endless appointments, all for a child who couldn't walk or speak anymore. Victoria found it tedious. She believed in cutting losses, moving forward, not dwelling on tragedy. Life's too short to be miserable, she'd say, sipping champagne at exclusive clubs. This Tuesday, Victoria drove her white Mercedes through downtown, returning from a spa appointment that cost more than Jamal's monthly food budget. Traffic crawled. Her manicured nails drummed impatiently on the leather steering wheel. She noticed the homeless teenager on the corner, attempting his silly routine for a small crowd. Her lip curled in disgust. Pathetic, she thought. These people should get real jobs instead of begging. Victoria didn't see a young man fighting to survive. She saw evidence of her worldview. Success meant you were smart and hardworking, poverty meant you were lazy and worthless. The idea that circumstances, luck, or systemic injustice played any role never crossed her perfectly styled mind. She honked her horn, startling the crowd. "Move," she shouted through her window. "Some of us have actual places to be." Jamal stepped back, embarrassed, as people scattered. Victoria smirked, pleased with herself, and accelerated through the intersection. But someone was watching. Scene 3, the inciting incident. Marcus Chen's black town car idled across the street, waiting for the light to change. He wasn't supposed to be here. His usual route avoided downtown traffic, but Daniel's new physical therapist worked near the plaza, and Marcus insisted on personally evaluating anyone who touched his son. Daniel sat beside him in his specialized wheelchair, strapped safely in place. The 8-year-old stared out the tinted window with vacant eyes, the same empty expression he'd worn since the accident that killed his mother and left him paralyzed from the waist down. The neurologist said Daniel could process everything. He simply couldn't respond. Locked-in syndrome combined with selective mutism, a psychological shutdown after witnessing his mother die. For 3 years, Marcus had tried everything: specialists, therapies, experimental treatments. Nothing reached his son. Then Marcus heard the laughter. At first, he didn't recognize the sound. High-pitched, genuine, bursting with joy, it came from Daniel. His son, who hadn't made a voluntary sound in 3 years, was giggling. Marcus's heart stopped. "Daniel?" The boy pointed at the street performer, a skinny teenager doing an absurd robot dance, complete with mechanical voice and jerky movements. Daniel's eyes, usually so empty, sparkled with life. His small body shook with laughter. Marcus felt tears blur his vision. "Thank God," he whispered. Then Victoria's Mercedes screeched to the intersection. "Get out of the road, you filthy brat." Victoria's voice cut through the moment like a knife. She leaned on her horn, face twisted with contempt. Jamal, startled, stumbled backward. The small crowd that had gathered dispersed quickly, sensing confrontation. A few coins people had tossed scattered across the pavement. Victoria lowered her window fully. "This is a public street, not your personal begging station. You're making this area look like a slum." Jamal raised his hands apologetically. "I'm sorry, ma'am. I'll move." "You should be ashamed," Victoria continued, enjoying her power. "Look at you, dirty, pathetic, probably on drugs. Get a job like a normal person instead of harassing decent people." The teenager said nothing. He simply bent down, gathering his few coins with shaking hands. His face burned with humiliation, but he kept his eyes down, refusing to engage. Marcus recognized his sister's voice instantly. Fury flooded through him, hot and immediate. He'd seen Victoria's cruelty before, how she spoke to waiters, housekeepers, anyone she deemed beneath her. He'd reprimanded her countless times. She never changed. But Daniel had stopped laughing. The light in his eyes dimmed, replaced by the familiar emptiness. His brief moment of joy, the first in 3 years, stolen by thoughtless cruelty. Marcus made a decision. His driver, sensing his employer's mood, spoke quietly. "Sir?" "Follow that boy," Marcus said, his voice tight with emotion. "I want to know everything about him." As Victoria's Mercedes sped away, satisfied with her performance, she had no idea her brother sat 50 feet away. She didn't know she'd just humiliated the only person on earth who'd made Daniel laugh. And she certainly couldn't imagine the consequences heading her way. Jamal collected his coins, barely $3, and disappeared into an alley, shoulders hunched against the world's contempt. He'd endured worse. He'd survived this too. But Marcus Chen wouldn't forget. And neither would Daniel, who clutched his father's hand and made a small sound, not quite a word, but close enough to hope. Scene 4, the observer's decision. Marcus Chen hadn't built a billion-dollar company by ignoring opportunities. As his town car pulled into a discreet parking spot, he watched the teenager disappear around a corner. The boy moved with practiced efficiency, avoiding main streets, keeping his head down, survival instincts honed by necessity. "Sir, should I follow?" his driver asked. "Not yet." Marcus pulled out his phone, typing rapid instructions to his head of security. Within minutes, he'd have the boy's full story. In his world, information was currency, and Marcus had unlimited resources. But this wasn't about business. This was personal. Marcus looked at Daniel, who'd retreated back into himself, staring at nothing. 3 years of silence. 3 years of Marcus questioning if his son would ever truly return. Then one moment, one genuine laugh, sparked by a homeless kid's silly dance. Hope, Marcus learned, was a dangerous thing. It hurt more than despair because it required you to believe in possibilities. After the accident, he'd buried his hope deep, focusing instead on Daniel's physical care, his company's expansion, anything to avoid facing the reality that his son might be lost forever. Now hope returned, uninvited and irresistible. Marcus remembered his own childhood. His parents had immigrated from Taiwan with nothing but determination and engineering degrees that American companies initially refused to recognize. They worked menial jobs, his father as a janitor, his mother as a seamstress, while studying for U.S. licensing exams at night. Young Marcus wore second-hand clothes and watched richer kids mock his mother's accent. He learned early that the world judged you by external markers: money, status, accent, appearance. It was unjust and arbitrary, but Marcus channeled his anger into ambition. By 30, he'd founded Chen Electronics. By 40, he'd revolutionized smartphone technology. By 45, he was a billionaire. Success hadn't made him forget his roots, but it had insulated him from daily reminders of inequality. Until Victoria's cruelty shattered that insulation. Watching that teenager absorb humiliation with quiet dignity reminded Marcus of his parents, their resilience, their refusal to let society's contempt define them. He saw something rare: strength without bitterness, hope without entitlement. And this boy, this invisible street performer, had reached his unreachable son. Marcus's phone buzzed. A preliminary report from his security team appeared, subject identified as Jamal Wright, 17, homeless approximately 2 years, mother deceased, no criminal record, frequently performs near plaza for income, sleeps in downtown alleys. More details would follow, but Marcus had seen enough. "Schedule a meeting with my personal assistant," Marcus instructed his driver. "I want a plan by this evening. Discreet, untraceable, no direct contact yet." "May I ask the objective, sir?" Marcus looked at Daniel, whose small hand still clutched his father's fingers. The boy hadn't let go since hearing that laughter. "There's a young man who needs help," Marcus said softly. "And my son needs a miracle. Maybe we can provide both." The town car pulled away from the plaza, but Marcus Chen's attention remained fixed on the problem. He'd built an empire by identifying potential others overlooked. This situation was no different, except this time, the stakes were infinitely higher. Because somewhere in this city, a homeless teenager had no idea his life was about to change. And Victoria Chen had no idea her cruelty had finally crossed a line her brother wouldn't tolerate. But Jamal Wright, sitting in his alley counting $3 and wondering if he'd earn enough for dinner, remained blissfully unaware that morning's humiliation was the last moment of his old life. ACT 2, Rising Action Scene 5, Jamal's reality. Jamal spent his $3 on a day-old sandwich from the corner store whose owner, Mr. Kim, sometimes gave him discounts. "Rough day?" Mr. Kim asked, noting Jamal's dejected expression. "Same as always," Jamal lied. He didn't mention the woman in the Mercedes or the shame that still burned in his chest. Complaining wouldn't help. It never did. He ate slowly, making the sandwich last, then returned to his alley behind Chen's Electronics. Irony wasn't lost on him. He slept behind a store owned by one of the world's richest men. Sometimes, late at night, Jamal imagined what that life felt like: security, warmth, knowing where your next meal came from. But self-pity was dangerous. It led to darkness, and Jamal had fought too hard to maintain his light. He pulled out his mother's photo, creased and faded. Maria Wright smiled at the camera, her eyes full of love. She'd taken that photo at his 15th birthday, their last celebration together before the cancer diagnosis. "I'm trying, Mama," Jamal whispered. "I promise I'm trying." His mother had taught him important things. Dignity wasn't about money, kindness cost nothing, and education was the only true path out of poverty. Before she got too sick, Maria made Jamal promise he'd finish high school somehow, someday. He'd kept that promise so far, studying from discarded textbooks he found in library dumpsters, but staying enrolled in actual school while homeless proved impossible. The sun set early this time of year. Jamal arranged his cardboard, pulled his hoodie tight, and tried to sleep. Tomorrow, he'd return to the plaza, do his routine, hopefully earn more than $3. Hope, his mother always said, was free. So Jamal held on to it fiercely. Scene 6, the first gift. 3 days later, Jamal found a package waiting on his cardboard bed. He approached cautiously. Street life taught you to trust nothing unexpected. But the brown paper package looked harmless, secured with simple string. A white envelope was attached. Jamal glanced around the empty alley. Dawn had barely broken, no one stirred. He picked up the package, surprisingly light, and opened the envelope. Inside, handwritten in elegant script, "For someone who brings joy to others. You deserve warmth too." A friend. Jamal's hands trembled as he unwrapped the package. Inside, a brand new winter jacket, quality material, insulated, waterproof. Not designer expensive, but far better than his threadbare hoodie. Also included, thick socks, gloves, a knit cap, and 5 $20 bills. $100. Jamal sat down hard, overwhelmed. He couldn't remember the last time someone had been kind without expecting something in return. Street life was transactional: perform, earn, survive. But this was pure generosity. He clutched the note, reading it again. A friend. Who? Why? Tears came unbidden. Not sad tears, but the kind that released pressure built up from too much struggle. For the first time in months, Jamal felt seen. Someone noticed him. Someone cared. He put on the jacket immediately. It fit perfectly. The warmth enveloped him like a hug, and for a moment, Jamal allowed himself to imagine his mother had sent it somehow, watching over him, making sure he stayed safe. "Thank you," he said to the empty alley, to God, to whoever had left this miracle. That morning, Jamal performed with renewed energy. His silly dances had extra enthusiasm, his robot voice more commitment. People noticed. His tip jar filled faster than usual. But across the street, in a nondescript sedan, Marcus Chen's security chief observed and reported, "Subject found the package. Emotional response positive. Continuing surveillance." Marcus read the message and smiled. Step 1 complete. Daniel, sitting beside his father in the town car, stared at the street performer with something resembling interest. Not laughter yet, but awareness, a crack in his shell. "We're helping him, buddy," Marcus whispered to his son. "And maybe he's helping us too." Scene 7, Marcus's investigation. The full report arrived that evening. Marcus sat in his home office, a room filled with awards and patents that meant nothing compared to the file before him. Jamal Wright's life, reduced to documents and photographs, painted a heartbreaking picture. Mother, Maria Wright, deceased 2 years ago from pancreatic cancer. No father listed on birth certificate. No living relatives. Subject entered foster system at 15, ran away after 3 months citing abuse. Multiple shelter stays, all temporary. Currently homeless, survives through street performing and occasional odd jobs. School records, straight A student until age 15. Teachers noted exceptional intelligence and natural leadership. Attendance dropped sharply after mother's diagnosis. Officially withdrawn after her death. Criminal record, none. Not even petty theft, which is remarkable given circumstances. Community observations. Local business owners describe subject as polite, respectful, never causes trouble. Several have offered small kindnesses, food, bathroom access. Subject always expresses gratitude. Marcus leaned back, processing. The world was filled with sad stories, but something about Jamal struck him deeply. Perhaps because the boy reminded Marcus of himself, intelligent, resilient, fighting against circumstances beyond his control. Or perhaps because Jamal possessed something Marcus had lost, the ability to maintain joy despite suffering. The security report included surveillance photos. One image captured Jamal entertaining a little girl outside a coffee shop, making exaggerated faces until she giggled. He'd earned no money from this interaction, he'd simply seen a sad child and responded with kindness. Another photo showed Jamal sharing half his sandwich with an elderly homeless woman, even though he clearly had little food himself. This wasn't someone taking advantage of society. This was someone society had failed. Marcus made his decision. Start a trust fund, he instructed his lawyer over the phone. Anonymous donor. I want the boy to have options, housing deposit, education opportunities, job training. But slowly. I don't want to overwhelm him or make him suspicious. Sir, may I ask why you're personally involved? Marcus glanced at the photo on his desk, Daniel, age 5, laughing on his mother's lap before the accident. Before the silence. Because sometimes the help we need comes from unexpected places, Marcus said quietly. And sometimes we get a chance to return the favor. He hung up and began planning phase 2. Scene 8. Victoria's escalation. Victoria Chen noticed the homeless boy again the following Tuesday. She'd forgotten about their first encounter, such people rarely registered in her memory. But this time, something was different. The boy wore a decent jacket, seemed more confident, drew larger crowds with his performances. It irritated her. Victoria had parked illegally again, impatient with downtown traffic, when she spotted Jamal. He was juggling stones while telling an animated story, surrounded by amused onlookers. Several people dropped bills into his tip jar. He's actually making money off this, Victoria muttered, offended on principle. Her friend Stephanie, equally privileged and equally oblivious, nodded from the passenger seat. It's disgusting. My father says the city should clear these people out. They're bad for business. Exactly, Victoria agreed. This isn't San Francisco. We have standards. She honked her horn loudly, startling the crowd. Jamal looked up, recognized her, and his smile faltered. Victoria lowered her window. You're still here? I thought I told you to get a real job. Jamal said nothing. He'd learned not to engage with people like her. But several crowd members frowned at Victoria's interruption. Lady, leave the kid alone, an older man said. He's not hurting anyone. Victoria's face flushed with anger. How dare a stranger reprimand her? He's panhandling illegally. Someone should call the police. He's street performing, a woman countered. It's completely legal. Maybe you should worry about your illegal parking instead. Laughter rippled through the crowd. Victoria, humiliated, rolled up her window and sped away, nearly hitting a pedestrian. But the seed of vindictiveness had been planted. That evening, Victoria complained to her social circle about the homeless infestation downtown. She posted a photo on Instagram, carefully angled to avoid showing Jamal's face, with a caption, "Why do we tolerate this? Downtown should be for business, not beggars. Someone needs to clean up our streets." #UrbanBlight #standards. The post received mixed reactions. Some followers agreed, others criticized her privilege and lack of compassion. Victoria deleted the negative comments and blocked critics. She wasn't done with the street kid. Not by a long shot. Scene 9, more gifts arrived. The gifts continued, each more helpful than the last. 2 weeks after the jacket, Jamal found a prepaid phone in his alley, basic model, 6 months of service paid in advance. The note read, "So you can call for help if needed. Stay safe." A friend, Jamal cried. He hadn't owned a phone since his mother died. This meant security, connection, emergency access. A week later, a gym membership card to a budget chain, prepaid for a year. The note, everyone deserves hot showers and dignity. A friend Jamal stood in that shower for 20 minutes, letting hot water wash away months of grime and stress. The gym had lockers where he could safely store his few possessions. Staff didn't question his situation. Marcus had anonymously paid them a generous goodwill bonus to ensure Jamal felt welcome. The third gift arrived a week after that, an envelope with $300 and information about a GED preparation program at the community center. The note, your mother wanted you to finish school. Honor her dream. A friend this time, Jamal didn't just cry. He sobbed, great, heaving sobs that released years of accumulated pain. Someone knew about his mother. Someone understood her dreams for him. Someone believed he was worth investing in. That night, Jamal enrolled in the GED program. The coordinator, Mrs. Chen, no relation to Marcus, but he'd made sure she was aware of Jamal's situation, welcomed him warmly. We're glad you're here, she said genuinely. Jamal attended classes 3 evenings a week. His performance schedule adjusted, he worked harder during days to earn enough, then studied at night. Sleep decreased, but purpose increased. His transformation didn't go unnoticed. Regular plaza visitors saw the change, cleaner appearance, more confidence, genuine hope replacing desperate cheerfulness. You're doing good, kid, Mr. Kim said, slipping Jamal a free coffee. Keep it up. But Victoria Chen noticed too, and her resentment grew. How dare this homeless boy improve himself? How dare he receive kindness she didn't authorize? In her twisted logic, Jamal's success diminished her superiority. She began planning something cruel. Scene 10, Jamal's small victory. 3 months after the first gift, Jamal passed his GED exam. He stood outside the testing center, holding the official certificate, barely believing it was real. He'd done it. Despite everything, homelessness, hunger, grief, he'd kept his promise to his mother. I did it, Mama, he whispered, touching her photo in his pocket. Mrs. Chen had encouraged him to apply for community college, but Jamal knew he needed stability first. Education without housing or consistent food was unsustainable. So he'd been saving every dollar, combining his performance income with the mysterious gifts, hoping to afford a security deposit on a room somewhere. That afternoon, Jamal performed with unprecedented joy. His routines were sharper, his energy infectious. A crowd of nearly 50 people gathered, laughing and cheering. His tip jar overflowed. A local news blogger, covering downtown revitalization, recorded Jamal's performance and posted it online. Street performer brings joy to downtown plaza. This young man's talent and positivity are infectious. #local talent #community spirit. The video went moderately viral, several thousand views by evening. People commented, he's amazing. What a gift this kid has. Someone should help him succeed. Marcus Chen saw the video, sent by his security team, and smiled. Phase 3 could begin. But Victoria saw it too, and fury consumed her. The comment section praised this homeless nobody, while Victoria, who'd done nothing to earn her wealth, received constant criticism for her privilege. The injustice, in her mind, was unbearable. She called her personal assistant. Find out everything about that street performer. I want to know where he sleeps, where he goes, everything. Ma'am, may I ask why? Because, Victoria said coldly, someone needs to teach him his place. And I'm just the person to do it. Scene 11, the sabotage. Victoria's plan was elegant in its cruelty. She waited until Jamal's evening GED class, when his alley was empty. Her assistant, a young woman too afraid to refuse her employer's sister, reluctantly helped execute the scheme. They planted items in Jamal's backpack, a stolen wallet, Victoria had taken it from a restaurant earlier that day, a small amount of marijuana, Victoria's boyfriend's stash, and most damning, a watch stolen from Chen Electronics 2 weeks ago during a break-in. The watch was key. Marcus had reported it stolen, and security footage showed the thief was approximately Jamal's height and build. Victoria had obtained the watch from the actual thief, a low-level criminal she'd contacted through shameful channels, for $5,000 cash. Then Victoria called the police, reporting a suspicious homeless man who'd been behaving erratically near Chen Electronics. She provided Jamal's description, mentioned seeing him with expensive items inconsistent with his apparent poverty. The trap was set. Jamal returned from class around 9 p.m., exhausted but happy. He'd aced a practice math test and felt proud. He ducked into his alley, ready for sleep. 2 police officers were waiting. "Jamal Wright?" one asked, hand on his holster. Jamal's heart hammered. "Yes, sir? We need to search your belongings. We've received a report of stolen property." Confusion flooded Jamal's face. "I haven't stolen anything." "Then you won't mind if we look." Jamal had no choice. He handed over his backpack, mind racing. The officers pulled out his few possessions, the photo of his mother, his GED study materials, the phone from his anonymous friend. Then came the wallet. "This yours?" the officer asked, holding up an expensive leather wallet Jamal had never seen. "No. I don't know where that came from." They found the drugs next, then the watch. The second officer radioed for backup. "Son, you're in serious trouble," the first officer said, not unkindly. "That watch was stolen from Chen Electronics. It's worth $20,000. Jamal's world collapsed. "I didn't steal anything. Someone planted this. Please, I've never even been inside that store." But the evidence was damning. The officers arrested Jamal, reading him his rights as he protested his innocence. Bystanders gathered, whispering. Mr. Kim from the corner store watched helplessly, wanting to defend Jamal but uncertain what to say. As police led Jamal to their car, he saw a white Mercedes parked down the block. Victoria Chen sat inside, watching with a satisfied smile. Their eyes met. Understanding dawned on Jamal's face. She'd done this. The woman from the plaza, who'd mocked him repeatedly, had destroyed his life. Victoria raised her coffee cup in a mocking toast, then drove away. Jamal sat in the police car, handcuffed, feeling hope drain from his body. 3 months of progress erased. His mother's dreams shattered. His mysterious friend's generosity wasted. "This is it," Jamal thought. "This is how my story ends." He didn't know that Marcus Chen's security team had recorded everything. Scene 12, Marcus learns the truth. Marcus received the call at 10 p.m. "Sir, there's been an incident." His security chief's voice carried urgency. "The subject, Jamal Wright, has been arrested." Marcus's blood ran cold. "On what charges?" "Theft, possession of stolen property, drug possession." "Sir, the stolen watch is from your store." "The one taken 2 weeks ago." "That's impossible." Marcus had followed Jamal's progress closely through surveillance. The boy hadn't stolen anything. He'd barely entered buildings, let alone high-end electronics stores. "Sir, we have footage you need to see." 20 minutes later, Marcus watched security recordings in his home office. The footage clearly showed Victoria's assistant entering Jamal's alley at 7:45 p.m., placing items in his backpack, then leaving. Earlier footage showed Victoria's Mercedes parked nearby. Another camera captured Victoria on her phone at 8:15 p.m., the exact time police received the anonymous tip. Rage, pure and incandescent, flooded through Marcus. His sister had framed an innocent teenager. She'd used Marcus's own stolen property to destroy someone who'd done nothing but bring joy to others. Someone who'd made Daniel laugh. Marcus called his lawyer immediately. "I need you at the police station. Now." Jamal Wright was arrested on false charges, and I have evidence proving his innocence. "Sir, it's almost 11 p.m., I don't care if it's midnight. Get there. I want him released immediately, charges dropped, and a formal apology. Then I want you to file a report about who actually planted that evidence." "Are you certain?" Marcus's voice dropped to ice. It was my sister. And I have proof. By midnight, Marcus arrived at the station personally. Daniel was home with his nurse, but Marcus couldn't wait. He brought his lawyer, his security chief, and a tablet containing the damning footage. The desk sergeant recognized him immediately. Mr. Chen. How can we help you? You're holding Jamal Wright. I'm here to clear him. 45 minutes later, Jamal walked out of the holding cell, bewildered and exhausted. He'd been questioned for hours, maintaining his innocence despite overwhelming evidence. No one believed him. Then this stranger appeared, a wealthy man in an expensive suit, and everything changed. Police watched the security footage, faces darkening with embarrassment. The charges were dropped. Apologies were issued. But Jamal didn't understand. Marcus approached him carefully. The teenager looked terrified, confused, like he'd been thrown into a reality that made no sense. Jamal Wright? Marcus extended his hand. My name is Marcus Chen. I believe we need to talk. Scene 13, Vindication. They sat in an all-night diner, Marcus Chen and Jamal Wright, separated by class and circumstance but connected by strange fate. Jamal could barely process the last 2 hours. Arrested, vindicated, and now sitting across from a billionaire who insisted on buying him a full meal. Jamal ordered cautiously, just a burger and fries, until Marcus said, "Get whatever you want. You've had a difficult night." So Jamal ordered, burger, fries, soup, a side salad, pie, milk. He wasn't sure when he'd eat again, despite this man's apparent kindness. Marcus watched him eat with something like sadness. How long has it been since you had a full meal? Jamal swallowed. I eat, sir. Maybe not 3 times a day, but I manage. You shouldn't have to just manage. Marcus leaned forward. Jamal, I owe you an explanation and an apology. An apology? You just saved me from jail. Yes, but I'm also partly responsible for why you were targeted. Marcus pulled out his tablet, showing Victoria's picture. Do you recognize this woman? Jamal's face hardened. The Mercedes lady. She's harassed me at the plaza a few times. Tonight, I saw her watching when the police arrested me. She looked happy. Her name is Victoria Chen. She's my sister. Jamal's eyes widened. Your sister set me up? Yes. And I'm deeply sorry. Marcus explained the surveillance footage, how his security team had been monitoring Jamal, not to harm him, but to help. Wait, Jamal interrupted. Monitoring me? Why? Marcus hesitated, then told the truth. 3 months ago, you performed near the plaza. My son was in the car with me. He's 8 years old and hasn't spoken or laughed in 3 years due to a traumatic accident. But he laughed at your robot dance. You gave him a moment of joy I thought he'd lost forever. Jamal sat back, processing. The boy in the wheelchair? With the sad eyes? Yes. Daniel. Marcus's voice cracked slightly. You reached him when doctors, therapists, and millions of dollars couldn't. So you've been helping me? The jacket, the phone, the gym membership, the GED program support, that was me. Anonymously, because I didn't want you to feel obligated or uncomfortable. I just wanted to give you opportunities. Tears filled Jamal's eyes. That was you? Why? Marcus chose his words carefully. My parents immigrated here with nothing. They worked minimum wage jobs while people like my sister, people who'd never struggled, treated them with contempt. I built my company to prove that circumstances don't define worth. When I saw Victoria humiliate you, and then watched you maintain your dignity and kindness despite everything. He paused. You reminded me why I worked so hard. And you reminded me that success means nothing if you don't use it to help others. Jamal wiped his eyes. I thought I was going to jail tonight. I thought my life was over. Your life is just beginning, Marcus said firmly. And I'd like to help, if you'll let me. Sir, you've already done so much, I want to offer you a job. Entry-level position at Chen Electronics, with full benefits and housing assistance. It includes continuing education support, you can attend college part-time if you want. The salary is fair, the work is honest, and you'll earn every dollar. Jamal stared, speechless. This isn't charity, Marcus continued. You're intelligent, hardworking, and you have a gift for connecting with people. Those are valuable skills. I'm offering you a chance, not a handout. What you do with it is up to you. Jamal found his voice. What about your sister? Won't she? Victoria will no longer be a problem, Marcus said, his tone hardening. I'm handling that situation personally. She will never hurt you again. Jamal absorbed this, then asked the question burning in his heart, can I meet him? Daniel? I'd like to see him again. Marcus smiled, a genuine, warm smile. He'd like that too. In fact, that's part of why I'm offering you this job. Daniel needs support, connection, someone young and patient who can maybe reach him again. I thought perhaps, as part of your role, you might spend time with him. If you're comfortable with that. I'd be honored. They shook hands across the diner table, sealing an agreement that transcended employer and employee. This was about second chances, about breaking cycles, about one man remembering his roots and another finding his future. But first, Marcus had to confront his sister. ACT 3, Climax and Resolution Scene 14, confronting Victoria. Marcus arrived at Victoria's penthouse at 8 a.m. unannounced. His sister answered the door in a silk robe, holding coffee, still glowing from her successful destruction of the street kid. Her smile vanished when she saw Marcus's expression. We need to talk, he said coldly. Now. Inside her obscenely expensive apartment, paid for with family money she didn't earn, Marcus didn't sit. He stood, radiating controlled fury. I know what you did, he began. I have footage of your assistant planting evidence in Jamal Wright's belongings. I have records of your phone call to police. I have everything. Victoria's face paled. Marcus, I don't know what, don't lie to me. His voice cracked like a whip. You framed an innocent 17-year-old boy because your ego couldn't handle him being praised. You used property stolen from my company to destroy someone who'd done nothing to you except exist in your line of sight. Victoria recovered quickly, defaulting to defensiveness. He's a homeless drug addict. I was protecting the neighborhood. He's never used drugs in his life. The marijuana was yours, or did you forget? And the wallet you planted belonged to a tourist. I've already returned it to its owner and explained you stole it. How dare you investigate me? How dare you? Marcus stepped closer, voice dropping to deadly quiet. That boy you tried to destroy? He made Daniel laugh. For the first time in 3 years, my son felt joy, and it was because of Jamal's kindness. Then you tried to put him in prison. Victoria's anger faltered. Daniel laughed? Yes. And you almost took away the only person who's reached him since the accident. Marcus pulled out a legal document. This is a restraining order. You are to stay 500 feet away from Jamal Wright at all times. You will not contact him, harass him, or interfere with his life in any way. You can't be serious. I'm also cutting your access to the family trust. You'll receive a modest monthly stipend, enough to survive but not enough to maintain this lifestyle. Your penthouse lease, which I've been paying, is terminated. You have 30 days to find your own housing. Victoria's face crumbled. Marcus, please, I'm your sister. My sister died the moment she became someone who hurts innocent people for entertainment. His voice remained steady, but pain flickered in his eyes. Our parents raised us better than this. They taught us dignity, kindness, humility. Somehow, you forgot every lesson. I'll change, Victoria pleaded desperately. I'll apologize to the boy. It's too late for easy apologies. You need to face consequences and rebuild yourself from the ground up, the same way our parents did, the same way Jamal is doing. Maybe then you'll understand what strength actually means. Marcus moved toward the door, then paused. If you ever threaten Jamal or Daniel again, I won't just cut you off financially. I'll press charges for evidence tampering and filing a false police report. You'll go to prison. Are we clear? Victoria nodded, tears streaming down her face. I hope you find your way back to who you used to be, Marcus said, softer now. The sister I remember had potential for kindness. I'd like to meet her again someday. He left Victoria sobbing in her expensive apartment, surrounded by meaningless possessions, finally confronting the emptiness inside. Scene 15, Jamal's first day. 3 weeks later, Jamal Wright walked through the front doors of Chen Electronics headquarters. He wore new clothes, professional but modest, purchased with his signing bonus. He carried a backpack containing a laptop Marcus had issued him, a notebook, and his mother's photo for courage. The building was glass and steel, soaring into the sky, representing a world Jamal had only dreamed about. He felt terrified and exhilarated simultaneously. Jamal Wright? A young woman approached, smiling warmly. I'm Sarah, from Human Resources. Welcome to Chen Electronics. Let's get you oriented. The day blurred with information, employee handbook, security badge, workstation setup, team introductions. Jamal's role was assistant in the Community Relations Department, a position Marcus had specifically created. His job involved coordinating charitable programs, visiting local schools to promote STEM education, and helping Chen Electronics connect with underserved communities. You'll be perfect for this, Sarah explained. Mr. Chen specifically wanted someone who understands community needs from personal experience. Jamal's co-workers were kind, curious but respectful. They knew he'd come from difficult circumstances. Marcus believed in transparency, but treated him as an equal. During lunch, Marcus appeared in the cafeteria. How's your first day? He asked, sitting across from Jamal. Overwhelming, Jamal admitted. But good. Everyone's been really nice. They're nice because you deserve niceness. Don't ever think this is charity, Jamal. You belong here. Marcus paused. Daniel's looking forward to seeing you Saturday. Are you still comfortable with that? Absolutely. Saturday couldn't come fast enough. Scene 16, meeting Daniel. Marcus's home was elegant but warm, a mansion that somehow felt like a home. Jamal arrived nervously, clutching a small gift he'd bought, a simple puzzle featuring robots. He remembered Daniel's laughter at his robot dance and hoped it was appropriate. A nurse led him to a sunroom overlooking a garden. Daniel sat in his wheelchair by the window, staring outside with those same empty eyes Jamal remembered. Hey, Daniel, Jamal said softly, approaching slowly. Remember me? The robot guy from downtown? No response. But Jamal noticed the boy's finger twitch slightly. I brought you something. Jamal sat cross-legged on the floor, unpacking the puzzle. I'm not sure if you like puzzles, but I thought maybe we could build this together? Silence. Jamal began assembling the puzzle pieces, narrating his actions with gentle humor. Okay, so we're looking for corner pieces first. That's the rule, right? Although who made that rule? Seems arbitrary to me. 10 minutes passed. Then 20. Jamal continued talking, occasionally doing silly voices or making jokes. He didn't pressure Daniel to respond, just shared space with him. Then, so quietly Jamal almost missed it, Daniel made a sound. Not a word, not yet, but a small hum of interest. Jamal's heart leaped, but he kept his reaction calm. Oh, you think this piece goes here? Let me try. He placed a puzzle piece where Daniel had been staring. It fit. You're good at this, Jamal said warmly. Want to find the next one? Slowly, over the next hour, Daniel engaged more. A pointed finger here, a head nod there, another quiet hum. By the end, they'd completed half the puzzle together. Marcus watched from the doorway, barely breathing. His son was participating, genuinely interacting with another person for the first time since the accident. When Jamal left that evening, he promised to return next Saturday. We've got a puzzle to finish, buddy. At the door, Marcus grasped Jamal's shoulder. Thank you. For what? We just did a puzzle. You did more than that. You gave me hope. Scene 17, transformation unfolds over the following months. Jamal's life transformed in ways he'd never imagined. At work, he excelled. His genuine understanding of poverty and struggle made him invaluable in community relations. He designed a program connecting Chen Electronics with homeless shelters, providing refurbished computers and technology training. The initiative won local awards and media attention. This is the kind of work that matters, Marcus told him proudly. Jamal moved into a modest apartment, nothing fancy, but clean, safe, and his. The first night, he slept in an actual bed and cried grateful tears. He hung his mother's photo prominently, whispering, "I made it, Mama. We made it." He enrolled in community college, taking night classes in business and social work. Education had always been his mother's dream, and Jamal intended to honor it fully. But the greatest transformation was Daniel. Every Saturday, Jamal visited. They built puzzles, watched movies, played simple games. Jamal talked constantly, sharing stories, making jokes, doing silly voices. He never pressured Daniel to respond, just offered consistent, joyful presence. 3 months in, Daniel spoke his first word in 3 years, Jamal. Marcus, who'd been nearby, heard it and wept openly. "Say it again, buddy," Jamal encouraged gently. "Jamal," Daniel repeated, smiling shyly. From there, progress accelerated. Daniel began speaking in short sentences, then longer ones. Physical therapy, combined with renewed emotional engagement, improved his mobility. He'd likely always need a wheelchair, doctors said, but his cognitive and emotional recovery was remarkable. "You saved him," Marcus told Jamal one evening. "No," Jamal replied. "We saved each other." It was true. Daniel gave Jamal purpose beyond survival, proof that struggle could lead to meaning. And Jamal gave Daniel a reason to rejoin the world. Scene 18, the gala 6 months after their first meeting, Chen Electronics hosted its annual charity gala. Marcus insisted Jamal attend. "You're part of this company's success story. You belong there." Jamal felt uncomfortable in formal wear. The tuxedo Marcus had arranged felt like a costume. But he attended, determined to honor Marcus's faith in him. The ballroom glittered with wealth and power, business leaders, politicians, celebrities, all gathering to celebrate Chen Electronics' charitable work and donations. Jamal felt out of place until Daniel arrived in his wheelchair, dressed in a tiny tuxedo, grinning widely. "Jamal," the boy called, waving enthusiastically. Jamal rushed over, kneeling beside the wheelchair. "Look at you. So fancy." "You too," Daniel said, giggling. They stayed together most of the evening, drawing curious looks. People whispered, "Who's the young man with Marcus Chen's son? They seem close. I heard he used to be homeless." Midway through dinner, Marcus stood to give his speech. He thanked donors, highlighted successful programs, then shifted tone. "6 months ago, I witnessed an act of cruelty," Marcus began. "My sister," he paused, acknowledging the elephant in the room, humiliated a teenage street performer for the crime of being poor. What she didn't know was that this young man had just given my son the gift of laughter after years of silence. The room fell silent. Daniel, sitting at the head table, beamed at Jamal. "That young man is here tonight. Jamal Wright, please stand." Jamal stood reluctantly, face burning as hundreds of eyes turned toward him. Jamal represents everything this company stands for: resilience, dignity, kindness in the face of hardship. 6 months ago, he was homeless. Tonight, he's our director of community outreach, a college student, and most importantly, my son's best friend. Applause erupted. Jamal blinked back tears. Jamal's story reminds us that circumstances don't define character. Poverty doesn't mean lacking value. And sometimes the people we overlook are the ones with the most to teach us. Marcus raised his glass. To Jamal, Thank you for reminding us what humanity looks like. The room toasted. Jamal sat down shakily as Daniel hugged him tightly. Later, as guests mingled, many approached Jamal with genuine interest. Some offered contacts, others shared their own stories of overcoming adversity. He connected with people not as the homeless kid but as someone with value and vision. Then Victoria appeared. Jamal tensed, but she approached humbly, eyes downcast. "Jamal Wright?" she asked quietly. "Yes? I'm Victoria Chen. I owe you an enormous apology." She took a shaky breath. "I was cruel to you. I tried to destroy your life because my own felt empty, and hurting you made me feel powerful. I was wrong. What I did was evil, and I'm deeply sorry." Jamal studied her. She'd lost weight, wore simpler clothes, looked genuinely remorseful. "I don't expect forgiveness," Victoria continued. "But I needed you to hear that I'm sorry. Truly. I've spent the last 6 months in therapy, volunteering at shelters, trying to understand how I became someone so hateful. You deserved none of what I did to you." Silence stretched. Then Jamal extended his hand. "Thank you for apologizing," he said carefully. "I don't forget what happened, but I'm willing to forgive. We've all got struggles. Maybe yours were just harder to see." Victoria shook his hand, tears streaming. "You're a better person than I deserve." "Maybe," Jamal said with a small smile. "But I'm trying to be someone who breaks cycles, not continues them." Victoria nodded and moved away, leaving Jamal with a sense of closure. Scene 19, full circle. 1 year after the plaza incident, Jamal returned to his old alley behind Chen Electronics. Not to sleep, he'd long since moved into a comfortable apartment. But to remember. To honor how far he'd come. He carried flowers for the spot where he'd found his first mysterious gift, the winter jacket that had sparked hope. He placed them on the ground, whispering gratitude to the universe, his mother, and Marcus. "Thought I might find you here," a voice said. Jamal turned. Marcus approached, Daniel walking beside him with forearm crutches, new mobility he'd achieved through relentless therapy and determination. "Daniel. You're walking." The boy grinned proudly. "Partly. Still need the chair for long distances, but I'm getting stronger." "You're amazing," Jamal said, hugging him carefully. Marcus looked at the flowers. "Special spot? This is where you left the first package." "Changed everything." "You changed everything," Marcus corrected. "I just provided resources. You provided the courage." They stood together in the alley, 3 people from different worlds connected by compassion and timing. "I've been thinking," Jamal said. "I want to start a foundation. For kids like me, teens who age out of foster care, kids whose parents die and leave them alone. I want to make sure they don't fall through the cracks." "I think that's an excellent idea," Marcus said warmly. "And I'd be honored to help fund it." "I want to earn it," Jamal insisted. "I'll fundraise, write grants, whatever it takes. I need to do this myself. Then Chen Electronics will match every dollar you raise." "How's that?" Jamal grinned. "Perfect." Daniel tugged Jamal's sleeve. "Can I help too? With the foundation?" "Absolutely, buddy. I'll need smart people, and you're pretty brilliant." The boy beamed. They walked together out of the alley, leaving behind the past but carrying its lessons forward. Jamal had learned that rock bottom could be a foundation, not a grave. Daniel had learned that silence could end. And Marcus had remembered that wealth meant nothing without purpose. Scene 20, closing 2 years later, the Wright Foundation served over 300 at-risk youth. Jamal, now 21, ran the organization with passion and efficiency. He'd completed his college degree and planned to pursue social work. But more importantly, he'd created the support system he'd once needed, connecting homeless teens with housing, education, mentorship, and hope. Marcus served on the foundation's board, contributing resources and business expertise. Daniel, now 11 and walking with minimal assistance, volunteered every weekend, befriending kids who'd suffered their own traumas. Victoria, in a surprising turn, began volunteering too. She worked quietly, without publicity or praise, helping with administrative tasks and slowly rebuilding her humanity. She'd never fully repair the harm she'd caused, but she was trying, and that mattered. The right foundation didn't save every kid. Some remained lost in cycles too deep to break. But many flourished, finding paths forward they'd thought impossible. At a foundation event celebrating its second anniversary, Jamal stood before donors and participants. 2 years ago, I was sleeping in an alley, wondering if I'd survive to 18, he began. Today, I'm standing here because one person chose kindness over indifference, because he saw potential where society saw problems. He gestured to Marcus, who sat with Daniel in the front row. But this foundation isn't about me. It's about every teenager sitting in this room who deserves the same chance I got. It's about breaking the cycle that says poverty equals worthlessness, that circumstances define destiny. His voice strengthened with emotion. We are more than our worst moments. We are more than society's judgments. We are resilient, capable, worthy of dignity and opportunity. Applause erupted. Teenagers who'd been homeless months ago, now housed, enrolled in school, pursuing dreams, stood and cheered. Jamal found his mother's photo in his pocket, touching it gently. We did it, Mama. Just like you believed we would. After the event, Jamal, Marcus, and Daniel stood outside under evening stars. Thank you, Jamal said simply. For everything. Thank you, Marcus replied. You gave me my son back. You reminded me what matters. Daniel hugged them both. You're my family. And they were, not bound by blood, but by something stronger, shared struggle, mutual respect, and love that transcended circumstance. Jamal was no longer the invisible street kid desperately performing for spare change. He was a leader, educator, advocate, and friend. His story became a beacon of hope for struggling youth everywhere. That sometimes the miracle we need doesn't come from money or power, but from unexpected kindness, a silly dance, and the radical belief that every human life has immeasurable worth. Hope, it turns out, is contagious. And Jamal Wright had learned to spread it everywhere he went.